Okay, so it looks like the meeting is now being live streamed, so we can go ahead and begin. It's 4:05 on January 23rd, 2023. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone, to the Park Advisory Committee meeting for the East Bay Regional Park District. And if we could please, Madam Secretary, begin with roll call. And I think that you are on mute.
That is correct. Thank you for that. And just one moment here. Apologies. All right. So we will start with Marie Arce. Andrew Carey.
Here.
James
Here.
Tang.
Here.
Susie Claxton.
Here.
Sharon Corkin.
Here.
Linda Deschambeau.
Here.
Irene Dieter.
Here.
Luana España.
Here.
And I know that we have Dev Mahadevan out this evening. Rochelle Nason.
Here.
Carlin Obringer.
I am here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bob Simmons is also out this evening. Igor Skerdoff.
Here.
Great. Neil Titsui. Roland Williams. And I believe that's it for our PAC members. And then as far as staff that are attending this evening's Park Advisory Committee on January 23rd, we have Chief Eric Feeler, Chief of Government and Legislative Affairs. And I see that Roland Williams is here. And Lisa Baldinger, with Government Affairs as well, Policy and Legislative Management Analyst. Flora Chantosh, Legislative Assistant. Myself, this is totally in no order, and Yuli Padmore, Recording Secretary, also Executive Admin for Government Affairs. And we also have Sergeant Kocher, Joe Kocher here as well. And I think that makes up our esteemed meeting.
Great. Thank you very much. Did we also acknowledge the board director that we have here today?
No, I wanted to make that a very special acknowledgement. President Dennis Waspy is also in attendance.
President.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. And let's see. Okay, so we have a well-attended meeting, and we'll be hearing from our board president shortly. But first, we do have an item on the, I guess I have to, do I have to read some acknowledgement here about our virtual meeting? So the purpose of conducting our meeting virtually is to provide the safest environment for staff and the public while allowing for public participation pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by Assembly Bill 361. The Board of Directors, in this case, the PAC, and staff the Park Advisory Committee and staff may participate in PAC meetings via phone, video conferencing, and or through a hybrid of in-person and remote attendance. The East Bay Regional Park District intends to hold meetings through either an entirely virtual platform or a hybrid of in-person attendance with the PAC members, designated staff, and limited members of the public to participate in person at the Park District Headquarters, 2950 Peralta Oaks Court, Oakland, California, and through the Park District's virtual platform, Zoom. If the committee decides to hold a hybrid in-person meeting, attendance by members of the public will be subject to maximum capacity of 5, as well as compliance with current health and safety protocols. And this information can be found on the agenda and on the Park District website, ebparks.org. Do any committee members have any questions about the meeting procedures? Okay, I don't see anybody's hand raised, so we are going to continue with the agenda. And now it is time. We've got item number 2, approval of our meeting minutes going all the way back to November 28th, 2022. And I want to see if there's any questions from committee members about those meeting minutes. And Linda, I see you went off mute. Do you have something?
No, I was going to move to approve.
Okay, great. If you would, please.
I move to approve the minutes.
Great. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that. Is
And
indicated.
that was Andrew. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, if you would please call roll for us. And what does it look like we've lost Yuli? I'm not
I'm
seeing
here.
her.
I'm
Oh,
here.
there you are. Okay, great. Thank
I'm a little
you.
slow on the draw. I think it's I don't know if it's the new year or what, but sorry about that. Thank you, Chair Obringer. So I will call roll here, and we have Andrew Carey,
Aye.
James Chang,
Aye.
Susie Claxton. She gave a thumbs up. I'm going to verbalize that. And Sharon Corkin,
I abstain.
Linda Deschambeau,
Aye.
Irene Dieter,
Aye.
Luana Espana,
Aye.
Rochelle Nason,
Aye.
Carlin Obringer,
And I'm going to abstain from that as I was not present at that meeting.
sounds good. And Igor Skerdoff,
Aye.
and Roland Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, or not unanimously, but it passes, excuse me.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And now it's time to hear from our esteemed East Bay Regional Park District Board President, Waspy. So welcome. Thanks for joining us today, and we are eager to hear your comments.
Great. Thank you very much. It's great to see you all again, and Happy New Year. It was a big year. I don't know if I'm supposed to be wrapping up the old year, which I'd prefer not to. I'm still in the COVID, whatever that is, and I'm a hangover, I guess. And I'm glad we're coming out. I think we're getting better and better. I know we are in the Park District as far as getting back to seeing one another and doing great things in the Park District. The new year brings a lot of new things, and as you all well know, we had the retirement of 2 wonderful board members, Ann Wieskamp and Beverly Lane. They served for over 44 years together, our community together, their years together. They were just wonderful board members, and a great loss for the district, but we were able to have 2 new board members come on. I think you're familiar with them, Olivia San Wong and John Mercurio. Great members, came, hit the ground running, so to speak, and you guys know why. They're PAC members. It's as Colin Coffey always says, this is the best training ground as Park Advisory Committee members. He was a Park Advisory Committee member for years and years, and John and Olivia, this seems like a training ground for board members right here at this meeting, and I'm glad you're all here, and I'm glad you're all so active. Number of things happening in the Park District. We have big plans for the coming year. We've been very successful with our advocating for wildland fire mitigation. We got many grants, tree mortality grants we've gotten to take care of some of our dead trees in our parks, and also just preparing for fires, not reacting to fires, but preparing for them. We're opening up new parks. We're purchasing more land, doing everything that we want to do and everything we dream of doing every year. And it was going really, really well. Our budget came out really, really well. Our numbers in property taxes looked really, really well. And then all of a sudden, January 1st came. And we had a few storms I'm sure you're all aware of. And in fact, we had 4 storms back to back. So I'm going to give a little report on that. This presentation was done by Jim O'Connor, our Deputy General Manager, who's assessed the whole situation of what went on through these 4 storms. And I won't go through the dates. You remember them. It hit, usually would go 2 or 3 days, give us 1 or 2 days of break, then hit again, give us another break, hit again, and then hit the 4th time. And boy, the 4th time, and it really, really affected the Park District. Some of the things we have are Del Val. I don't know if you're all familiar with Lake Del Val. It's Department of Water Resources created this dam. It was for storage, it was for recreation. And the storage works really, really well until we have storms like this. And then downstream, we don't want to flood anybody downstream. So a lot of times the Department of Water Resources calls us and says, we cannot let any more water out of the dam or the spillway, and because we'll flood everything downstream in Niles Canyon. So we retain it in the park, and this is what we get. I hope you're all familiar with Lake Del Val. Lake Del Val is a beautiful, giant, wonderful park with a campground and everything in it. It's also 95% of our structures and infrastructure, meaning the campground facilities, the concession stands, the picnic areas, are all within the agreed upon flood area. So they have in water, we will be flooded. And it's happened a number of times before. It never gets old. These are our concession buildings at Oak Point. Our picnic areas, our campgrounds go under every single thing. I mean, as you can imagine, if you go and want to have you want to go camping, you want to be by the lake. If you want to go swimming at one of our beaches, one of our 2 beaches there, you want to be by the lake where you can swim. So the concession stands are close, the restrooms are close. This is what happened. Lots and lots of mud, lots and lots of flooding. Some of these buildings, this is a restroom building in a campground. It's pretty hardy, it can take it. It's made of concrete and blocks. So it'll take it, we'll just clean it out. This mud will be easily cleaned out. Thanks, Yuli. This is great coordination. Thank you, Yuli and I practiced. The picnic areas, we'll pull out all these roots and these limbs and things like that and clean up, and we'll do okay. Yuli, I'm pausing. There we go. But some of these low water crossings, we have these great, it's kind of fun. When you go into different phases of our campground down there, there's you drive kind of through the water, and it's usually a nice little trickle, and the kids love it, and it's a little bit thrilling. This past couple months, it's been way more than thrilling. It's been scary, and as you saw in the last slide, it just washed out the entire road. Washing out entire road would be easy to fix, or it costs a lot of money, but a little easy to fix. But what we're going to have here is we're crossing a stream. So we're going to have to get lots of permits. We're going to have to do some biological studies to see that we're not interfering with fish or anybody like that. But we want to come back to this. Just incredible destruction. This is our brand new interpretive center. I hope you all came to the opening of our new interpretive center that we spent lots and lots of money to do, and made it really accessible. And really accessible meaning right next to the beach, right next to where all the people are. And this is what we got. We got a flood. We tried to armor this. The park staff all come out there, and we sandbagged it and put visqueen all around it so that we hopefully kept the water out. There'll be some damage on the outside, but once again, that's stuff we can handle. Hopefully the inside is intact. This is the Don Castro fishing pier that broke loose. And I don't know if you watch YouTube videos that are, catastrophes, slow motion catastrophes. This is great. I wish we had this, but look it up on YouTube. I think you can just type in Don Castro fishing pier. It's quite a famous video now. Or, oh, geez, working. How'd you do that? You wasn't able to do it. Watch this. And I wish we had sound. And a gentleman's just filming this on the bridge to get into Don Castro. And down the spillway. And boom. Thanks for doing that, Yuli. I didn't know we'd get that. The sound effects are incredible on that. The cracking of wood, it's amazing. It's a slow motion train wreck, essentially. This is Fire Station 2 down in Redwood Canyon. Beloved fire station, historic fire station, probably the last time that'll ever be used. I've been here when this thing's flooded in my career with the Park District. This time, that's the creek. This is a bridge in the front. The creek is risen above that, filled the firehouse. And in the next slide, we'll see that it tore the bridge to pieces and disjointed it. That bridge, I don't know if it'll be able to be rebuilt. The fire station itself fills with water. When I was a firefighter there in the old days, we'd just sweep it out, put some blowers, dry it out, and then probably deal with all the molds and stuff. Nowadays, we have industrial hygienists that won't allow that. We'll probably have to tear all the sheetrock out of here and do all kinds of changes. I would bet that we'll probably move the fire station to higher ground in the future. So the Redwood Schoolhouse, where we have many offices, it flooded also from water coming off of the hillside behind it. And some of the, this is all minor stuff that we can handle. This is the big stuff. This is a potential landslide at Seaview and Seacliff Drives in Miller Knox Regional Park. This is our trail to go to the top by Nickel Knob. This is what's below us. And that's, those are houses in Brickyard Cove area. And those houses had to be evacuated. I think there were about 15 homes that need to be evacuated just based on we had geotechnical engineers coming in, big crack, obviously a little bit of sliding, great fear, and it continues to be great fear. It hasn't slid yet, but that's going to be an issue in the future, and it'll be a political issue because in the next slide, as you see, the nice orange and yellowish line is the regional park's boundary. Those poor people down on Seaview, I bet have no idea that their HOA included that land, and the red little stripe there that Yuli's pointing out, that's where the slide is. So I think we missed it being on our property by a few feet. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I hope for the best, and I hope it stays stable, but things are sliding everywhere, and we can clean up the mud. I don't know how we're going to deal with these deals. This is Garin Park, Myers Garden. I don't know if you've ever been there. These beautiful historic gardens. It's High Creek is the creek that goes through there, and boy, it was anything but dry. The photo on the right shows a bridge, and coincidentally, I built that bridge 30 years ago for the Park District, and it's held up to every storm. But in this case, you see all the limbs and the branches that came downstream in this flooding. Once it clogs that bridge and clogs up the streamway, it just spreads into the garden, spreads all kinds of silt throughout the gardens and all these historic plants that we planted in there. And I'm told that the bridge blew away and is no longer there, which I'm very saddened by. Up in Pleasanton Ridge to Han Canyon, roadway giving away. And this is going to be real long-term issues for us. These aren't easily solved problems. You don't just dump a bunch of dirt back in there or a bunch of rocks. You get engineers to deal with it. You get biologists to deal with it for the habitat we're destroying, wildlife habitat and plant habitat. So these will be issues that will be with us for years. This is Albany Beach, obviously flooding down there. I think it can take it. It's a shoreline. It's done it before. We provide a little asphalt down there, but I think it's probably dry right now, as a matter of fact. And then, the mud sides are the hard part. We can clean up the mud off the trails, but those big scars on the hill are still there. And it's going to be issues for us to stop hills from sliding down if we keep having these wild erratic storms that we seem to have in the past few years. You know, these are trails that are blown out. This is Tyler Ranch, our newest park, or our newest entrance to Pleasanton Ridge, and a newest addition to 2,500 acres. Had a nice little trail there that is no longer there. And, you know, you can always fix the trail, but if you look in the picture on the left, you can kind of see where the trail is on the right-hand side of the picture. And then look at the slide above it. I mean, that doesn't seem to me, I don't know how you'd stabilize that. We'll try to above it and below the trail. How do you can rebuild the trail, but how do you stabilize it from future storms? And then everywhere, Los Trampas, just everything seems to be sliding down the hills on us. And but we'll work on it. Few trees fell. I don't think trees fell on any, well, I know they didn't fall on any human beings or any vehicles that I'm aware of in the park district that did an extensive amount of damage like it has in some communities. But so that's us. We're resilient. We'll come back. It's just kind of takes you back a few steps. We had lots of big plans for this coming year, and opening parks, spring's just around the corner, and we'll still be cleaning up, and there will be some trails that'll be closed. But as we always say, you know, it'll be new opportunities. I know I hike at Lake Chabot and the West Ridge or West Shore Trail and the East Shore Trail, and boy, I won't hike on the West Shore Trail for a while, and it'll just give me opportunity to enter parks in different different areas and different trails, and learn some new things and see some new things in the parks. So anyway, that's it. I hope I didn't take too long. Thank you for having me here. And if you have any questions, let me know. We'll keep you updated on everything that's going on. If you check our website, that's mostly parks that are open, parks that are closed, trails that are open, trails that are closed. But I think as the pack will, you know, once we're still assessing what's going on, you know, these storms, you try to get out and then another storm comes. What slid yesterday or what hadn't slid yesterday has slid this afternoon. It'll keep going. I don't know how many storms we have predicted for the rest of this season, but we'll continue to monitor those, and we'll continue to keep you as PAC members updated, and hopefully we'll get back to normal.
Well, thank you very much for this presentation. I know we have a number of questions. I do want to acknowledge Vice Chair Tsutsui has joined us. So if we can make a note of that, please, for attendance. And I do want to thank you for sharing this with us, because I know that there's been damage in many jurisdictions. And so it's good to see, you know, how the park district is trying to mitigate and address, since these are, you know, unprecedented atmospheric rivers that are impacting our infrastructure. So I see Roland and followed by Linda.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that presentation, Dennis. I guess my one question is, those are significant costs. We can talk about the soil later, but is this covered? Is this covered by insurance? Is this a potential reserve event that you guys kind of gotten into that? Or just how are you going to address it financially?
Well, you know, the district does have insurance. I won't get into what we have. We're self-insured up to, you know, we pay up to an incredible number. I think it's $330,000 or something really amazing. And the insurance takes over, but it's not, you know, they don't insure slides and things like that. We'll insure buildings, and I don't know if they cover storm damage. But here's the real deal. We depend on FEMA. So in the storms in 2017, we were able to recover a lot of money from FEMA. But gosh, it's embarrassing. I didn't show the slide on the old Moraga Trail, Moraga Arinda area, where our Deputy General Manager O'Connor had a slide in this presentation that I showed you, but I left this one out. This was a trail that had washed out in 2017. FEMA agreed to pay us for it. We got all the permits. We did all the work we needed to do. Finally got final approval, and we're about to start work on it, and it washed away worse in January. So, you know, it's catch up, and FEMA is a wonderful organization. I mean, gosh, they save us all the time. And as you know, Roland, they saved us at the golf course in a number of ways, and rebuilt bridges and things like that at the golf course. But now the golf course is shot again. It's a mess down there again. So we're doubling down here. I would never question the speed of which way they work, because there's everybody's has catastrophes and emergencies like this. So we'll probably we're assessing what we need to do. I was not going to give you a number. Mr. O'Connor, when he presented this to our board last week, it was about $9 million, but there were some areas that people hadn't gotten to. There are some slides, we've got 1,300 miles of trails. So most of our buildings are intact, with the exception of, the Redwood Schoolhouse and things like that, and some of the buildings out at Del Val, but they'll dry out. But, these trails, who knows? And those are really, really hard, difficult engineering feats to hold a hill up and have a trail go through it. So we're depending on FEMA. That will be our savior, so to speak, but it'll take a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Linda, followed by Luana.
Boy, the old saying, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Those are pretty overwhelming photos. I had 3 or 4 calls myself, friends who know I have some role at the Parks District, and people wanted to know if there was a place where they could go and see what was open or not open. The best I offered, I tried to do a little Googling, was to try and call the individual parks and talk to the park rangers if they could get through. But do you have any other advice or a website? I mean, what's a good way for the public to know what's open and what's not, and what they should stay away from?
Yeah, I think there's a banner headline, is that what they call it, on our website. First thing you click on when you click eparks.org, there was a red banner that said, here are the parks that are closed, here are the parks that are open. As a board member, I was more concerned with, hey, let's get people back in the parks. I personally think that, it's not a red banner, it's a yellow banner. But if you saw that, it's the latest update is what you're getting. And we're trying to keep everybody informed. Once again, I was saying, for me, let's get people back into the parks. You mentioned, Linda, a picture says 1,000 words. I love hiking in the parks. I've never had so much fun. I put on all my rain gear. I get out there. Everything is weeping water, which we haven't had for years. There's water coming out of every hill. Wildlife is happy as can be. It's just a great time to be in the parks. We want you to be safe, and we don't want a tree to fall on you or have a hill slide down on you. But there are parks that are very safe, very accessible, very open, teeming with water. The lakes are filled to the brim. It's like they're swelling. Lake Chabot is amazing. So yeah, that's the way to do it. And
All right, well, thanks. I think I wasn't caught up when I got asked last time that yellow banner wasn't up there. So I see it now. And the one case was a mom who was worried about her teen daughter going bicycling. So I agree, get them out there and tell them to follow the signs when they arrive and all the good stuff. So it's just, it's just heavenly out there.
Yeah, if you did come to the park, you would be designated. You can come to Lake Chabot. They say we are in fact open. The West Shore Trail is blocked off, and there's a list of trails that are open, what's safe and what's not safe. So we're doing our best to alert everybody to what's going on.
Thank you. We have Luana, followed by Andrew.
So I have 2 questions. One question is, when you're prioritizing the repairs for the storm damage, how are we looking at climate change and making different types of repairs or improvements that are going to last beyond the next storm? Because you mentioned that one example of a trail where you have it already and it's permitted, and we've had these series of storms, and now that trail has worse damage than in the past. And the second question is just, how can we bring more visualization to the actual damage that's in the different parks? Is there a way to connect different pictures and stuff to a different interactive GIS map, or kind of have a little bit more visualization, like videos or something? Because like, if I look at Coyote Hills is open, but all the marshland is flooded. So as far as you can't connect through like Alameda Stables, So if you're planning longer routes or different visits, just as far as so you can still go out and use that area safely, how can we just visualize more little damage so people have an idea of why that trail is closed and they don't get into different situations or too far out on the trail?
Thank you, Luana. In answer to your second question, I know the park staffs there's an open link that park people are supposed to, when they observe something, photograph it, send it in. It's kind of a visualization for park staff. I don't know if we're going to publicize that on our website and anywhere. I think it's a great idea now that I think about it. It would be really good to share that with everyone. I know, the park supervisors are charged with, okay, we've got some dry periods now, get out there in your trails, see what's going on, assess what's going on, and photograph it and see in anticipation of a number of things. One, first opening them up to the public to make sure they're able to get there safely and enjoy this. Also to record this for FEMA reports and things like that, and tours, and where we should direct FEMA people. But I honestly don't know, and we'll find out if we can share that. I think it would be a great file to share with folks on our website for all the public to see. And your first question was, remind me again.
Just as far as like you're going like to repair and prioritize the different storm damage, when we're doing those repairs, like how are we looking at climate change and some of the other larger issues, so that when we go through all that process for permitting and everything else to rebuild something, that it's actually going to be resilient enough for upcoming storms? Because you had an example of a trail as far as that. There was previous damage and you went through that whole process, and now this other storm was at such a magnitude that you're going to have to go through that process again.
Well, yeah, thank you. I think we will do that, and I suggest we try to do that. Now, when we build something new, we think of how we can adapt to changing climate. These atmospheric rivers, these erratic storms we have, these wildfires we continue to have. I mean, the best, I think, example I can use is Fire Station 2, which I was a firefighter for the Park District for 30 years, and that place would flood infrequently, and it was always worth coming back. But no, it's not now. I mean, these floods are so large, they're just, we washed out a bridge. Why would I'm not going to make the statement right now, but one would think if we're adapting to climate change, one of the best adaptations we could do is not put a fire station next to a river, a creek that runs right next to it, is almost below it, and it's just not in the right place. Not to mention during a firestorm in the summer or in the hot weather, it's right in the middle of a forest. We need to put that, and this is not anybody's plan, but my first thought was, let's move Redwood. I hope you all know where Redwood Canyon Fire Station is, just 2 miles down Redwood Road off of Skyline. Well, we have the Trudeau facility right up on Skyline, which is our property. It's only 2 miles away. It doesn't take anybody out of any response area as far as fire is concerned. In fact, it probably puts them closer to where the response would be. Let's move it up there. We've got room up there. Let's move it up there. It's high and dry, literally. That's how we would adapt. The trails, you're right. Why would we rebuild a trail with a big giant slide and a scar and a hill right above it? We may have to reroute that trail, or we might have to go up over the hill. We have been adapting. We try to build with adaptation in mind and climate change in mind. The buildings at Del Val, we don't use sheet and materials like wood on the outsides anymore. That'll get wet, then they'll rot, and then they'll get molds and things like that. If I'm not mistaken, the restroom we showed you in Del Val was made from concrete, and then the siding was made out of what's called hardy board. Hardy board looks sort of like shiplap construction siding on a building. It's really made out of concrete. It won't burn. It won't get mold when it gets wet. So we are building that way. And, you know, as we continue to experience these wild fluctuations of either storms or fires, we need to talk about a few things like placement and building materials and things like that. So we will consider all that.
Yeah, Dennis, one thing feel like I should point out is when we have FEMA take a look at storm damage, they typically, or historically anyway, will only fund a replacement. So when we want to build in additional resiliency, that's not necessarily covered under the FEMA money. And I know we're going to talk about our legislative program, but that's actually something we should begin to advocate for to make sure that FEMA understands that we need to rebuild better.
Thank you, Eric. That was a great plug for the legislative and government affairs, because they do that. That's really well, in my opinion, maddening deal. It's great that FEMA will let us replace something. They don't want us to replace say fire station down at Station 2 with a mansion somewhere better and bigger, and cost a lot more money and have them pay for it. I understand the concept, but in some of the rivers you saw or the creeks you saw that overflowed and washed away, the culverts, the pipes that go under the roadway just aren't big enough. And we would be foolish to rebuild them back in the same place. We have to, because there has to be a road there. But like Eric says, FEMA will say, okay, we're going to give them to replace one culvert or a 48-inch culvert. We would like to say, we'd like some 64-inch culverts, and we'd like 2 of them so that we don't have to deal with this flooding anymore. But that's why we have a legislative and government affairs department who advocates, and hopefully we can get FEMA to adapt with us.
Thank you. So we have questions, comments from Andrew, and then followed by Susie.
Okay, I guess, Dennis, the question I have is partly related to the fuel mitigation process last year. How much, or has any of our erosion problems resulted from the fuel management process? And the second question is, do we know what the impact has been on our park partners, our vendors in the park?
Okay, the first one, the fuel mitigation, we take that into consideration, and as you, oh gosh, what is that acronym? WARUMP, our fuel break program. And when we talk about that, it's not only fuels management, it's not only fuel breaks, but it's also restoration. So whenever we apply for money, and people seem to like that, people that grant us money seem to like the idea that we include restoration. Carson, the Park District, we have many people that advocate for, cut down all the eucalyptus. Well, if you cut down all the eucalyptus, you're going to have bare mountains and hills, like you say, that will wash away. Well, I won't get into the politics of it, but once you get rid of the eucalyptus, then all of our folks, our constituents and our friends that say everything in the hillside should be natives, we have a component that is restoration in all our deals. So I don't know right now. It could very well be that some of our fuels management crews have done some work, but we usually leave islands of vegetation and trees. We don't just clear cut. If you've seen some of the projects, and I'm sure you have been experienced some of the projects we have up in Tilden and Wildcat Canyon, we make islands of vegetation, smaller vegetation, baccaris, things like that, so that bird populations can still be there. It's just that we don't want contiguous hillsides of Baccharis and things like that. We want to have little islands so they can burn, but they're not going to create enough heat to, they'll burn out when they get to the bare spots or the spots that we've created as a fuel break. And we'll limit the trees. I think we limit our trees in some of these treated areas to anything over 12 inches. That's a guess. It could be 8 inches. And that gets rid of all the small little eucalyptus suckers in the lower forests, so that create these canopies and fuel ladders essentially. So that's how we deal with that. I don't think that's occurring. And what was your second question?
Had to do with the impact on the vendors in this park system and the park partners.
No, that's one close to my heart. My favorite golf course and where I play golf at least once a week, Redwood Canyon Golf Course, right down Redwood Road in Castro Valley, between Castro Valley and Oakland, suffered incredible damage. They flooded the golf. East Bay Mud does the same thing. They have to hold back water in their reservoirs, and unfortunately, Redwood Canyon Golf Course is right between Lake Chabot Reservoir and Upper San Leandro Reservoir. So it's flooded a few times, and it subsides, and then it rains again and more. And what happens is once it subsides, you have 4 inches of mud on your golf course, and it's a mess. It's washed away a couple of bridges. So yeah, but we work with our vendors. You know, we understand they're taking a risk being in some of our places. They enjoy having a golf course in such a beautiful natural setting. So we'll work with them, and well, they'll also be beneficiaries of some of the FEMA money also. The vendors at Lake Del Valle, you saw that the concession were the kayak rentals and the boat rentals, and the those guys will. I think they're smart enough. This happens infrequently, but it does happen. They've moved their kayaks out and they've moved their valuable stuff out of there. It's just a building. Hopefully we'll be ready for them in summertime. Unless we continue to have so many storms that they can't, but we'll get them ready. We'll get back up.
Good. I would like to commend, before I take a chance, to commend the staff at Ardenwood for their quick responses to the downed trees that became perilously close to striking the Railroad Museum. So I'll pass it on to them. We
All
had
right, thank you.
150-foot tree come down, touch our building.
Oh boy. Yeah, I've hesitated because I know I've taken way more than my time. The staff has been incredible. They you know, this is what park rangers do, and this is what park firefighters do. This is what everybody does. We all get together, and emergencies are what we do because we're out there in nature.
Well, thank you. And I do want to acknowledge that it is 4:47. So I'm going to acknowledge Susie and then Igor. And then if, you know, this is fascinating. We could dedicate the whole meeting to this, and I'm just trying to move everything along. So we'll have Susie and then Igor, and then hopefully move on to the next agenda item, please.
Yeah, this may have been stated, but that banner is good. You can click on Finding Your Park, and I looked up Coyote Hills and I saw that Patterson Ranch Road is closed to vehicles, and wow, I would have just driven down there and not known that. And so it's good that they have that and they update. I hope they update as much, and having pictures would be great, but I can imagine that's a lot of work, and the work might be better done in the field cleaning up. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you. And then Igor. And Igor, you are on the mute. You are still muted.
There we go. Oh, sleep at the wheel. Anyway, I was curious to see if you had a chance to learn about what's happened to the two streams, the Wildcat Creek and the other one is, I believe it's San Pablo Creek, that come down through the canyon and down into the city, and then over the fish ladder that's down below by the railroad tracks. Any sense of how they fared?
You know, I honestly don't know. I've concentrated on Ward 3 down here and County Hills, Hayward Shoreline, Garin Park, and Lake Shimo and areas down here. I'd love to get up to Tilden. I'm going to go play golf up there on Thursday because I can't play at Redwood Canyon, so I may take a little excursion up there. It's fun. I mean, you know, I'm laughing this off. I'm really not, but God, it's a great time to be in the parks. I mean, it's nature's doing its thing. So I'd love to go hike up there. I probably will, but I don't have an answer for you, Igor.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's just that's it's a project, an active project to try to reduce the erosion in that gorge. And I just can't imagine what all this deluge has done to the gorge down there.
Yeah, I bet it's probably not very successful at this point in the game.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And we really appreciated you spending time with us, President Waspy. And yes, a very important update. So we thank you very much. And you're welcome to stay with us through the rest of the meeting or jump off if you have something else you need to do. Either way, you are welcome. I'm going to move to item. Oh, thank you. I'm going to move to item number 4, public comment. I understand that there may be a public comment. Amelia Marshall, I wanted to see if you'd still like to make your public comment this evening.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for accepting this public comment. My name is Amelia Marshall, representing California State Horsemen's Association, Region 5. I was hoping to be able to greet our newest PAC member who is an equestrian. It's been several years since an equestrian has been seated on this august panel. So we're very excited that Bob Reed will be joining you, and we'll look forward to greeting him personally next month. But we'd also like to express our thanks to Deputy General Manager Jim O'Connor for expanding the Briones Trails Pilot Test Area to incorporate what we call the standard equestrian loop, where the community there had spoken about the need to have the entire area where people actually ride horses included in that test area, and the Park District listened to the local equestrians, and we very much appreciate that. So thank you very much, and have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Amelia. And I look forward to meeting our newest PAC member when they join us. And I'm just going to check and see, Madam Secretary, do we have anyone else who would like to make public comment at this time?
We have no further comment at this time, public comment at this time.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. We're going to officially close the public comment period at this time for items that were not on the agenda. And we're going to move into presentations. Our first presentation, there was already a little bit of reference made to this, our legislative program. And this is going to be presented by Eric Fuller, Chief of Government and Legislative Affairs.
Thank you, Chair Obringer, and I'll be joined by Lisa Baldinger on our team. And I just wanted to start, thank you, Dennis, for that presentation on the storm damage. And, you know, it's that kind of a thing that really can alter one's work plan when you're working government affairs dramatically. But we do have a legislative program that we do intend to follow in addition to monitoring the storm damage and working with FEMA and our electeds to secure reimbursements. We will also be keeping one eye on the state budget. The governor's proposed budget is anticipating a $22.5 billion deficit. Although with the fluctuation of the stock market and some of the other economic indicators, it's hard to know where that number really will land by the time the budget is approved in June. But we will keep an eye on that as we continue to advance our legislative program. So you're seeing before you the first slide of our presentation, and this is a program that we established last year after extensive interviews with the board of directors, our general manager, and I want to really give credit to Lisa for pulling it all together and compiling a beautiful document. that we're happy to share with you, but I think it's now somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 pages. So, and I think we look at our government affairs work in kind of two categories. One is the working relationship building with our electeds, really staying in touch with them over the course of the year, and not just when we're looking for something that the Park District is in desire of, but things like the site visit that you're seeing here, quarterly site visits with elected staff. This particular photo is of a wildfire site visit we did earlier in the year, and then just completed on Friday was a very successful site visit of the Hayward shoreline with over 65 participants. And thank you, Dennis, for the inspiration to do that during the King Tides. And the other category really is knowing what we're talking about. And to have credibility with electeds, you really do need to do the analytical work and the understanding the policies and doing that deeper dive. And that's work that Lisa on our team really leads. And then there is the third category to our work, which is all of you, the Park Advisory Committee. And we'll be talking more about how to merge those two interests even more than we already have. So I think we're ready for the next slide. Just a quick overview. When we look at the Park District, we look at district lines for electeds, and knowing which parks are in which district for which elected official. And here we see the Board of Supervisor map that we have. A couple of changes after the election in Contra Costa County, Ken Carlson replacing, I think there's a typo there actually, now that I look at the map, replacing Karen Mitchoff. And then on the Alameda County side, Lena Tam is in the seat that was Wilma Chan's seat before she untimely passed. Next slide, please. Again, assembly districts. Would note Lori Wilson up in the Far East County is a relatively new member to our delegation. We have met with her and she's very enthusiastic about working on physical and psychological health benefits of parks. So we're looking forward to working with her. And then in Alameda County, Liz Ortega is now in the seat that was formerly held by Assemblymember Bill Quirk. And just to note that Alex Lee, the elected assembly member from sort of the San Jose area, is picked up more of southern Alameda County, including Coyote Hills and Ardenwood. So we'll have a little bit more to work with him on, which is great. Next slide, please. And then on the state Senate side, we'll note that we have a new senator in southern Alameda County, Aisha Wahab. Also, Susan Eggman, interesting thing that we learned today, because she did not run, her term is 4 years, and so she did not run in her current or her new seat because she was not up for election. So her people she will be representing will continue to be the San Juan King County folks, and most of southern Alameda County will continue, I believe, to be represented by Senator Steve Glazer. As our advocate in Sacramento indicated, you can't represent people who never had the opportunity to vote for you. So we'll see a change in that in 2024, but for now, we believe that Senator Glazer will continue to represent that part of our Alameda County. Next slide, please. And then the last map, I believe, is our federal representation. And we have a couple changes here too. The northern waterfront of Contra Costa County is now represented by John Garamendi. He's actually a friend of the district from a previous congressional seat that he had occupied that included much of Contra Costa County. And then when redistricting occurred in 2010, he moved up north, and now he's coming back south a little bit. And then we have the seat that Jerry McNerney held is now represented by Josh Harder, and he has a little bit of eastern Contra Costa County that has a couple of our land bank properties in. Next slide. And I believe Lisa is going to be speaking to this slide.
Yes. Good evening, Park Advisory Committee members. Lisa Baldinger, Legislative and Policy Management Analyst. I'm pleased to be with you all here tonight. And we'll be doing a lot of chatting tonight. I'm both your presentations, so looking forward to it. Just diving into this slide, I recently had the honor of speaking with the San Francisco State College course, and I took it one step back from this side. And so I just want to share that with you all, which is that the 3 core pillars guiding the work of legislative and government affairs are really our board, our general manager, and our master plan. But as you all well know, legislation is so constantly changing, and we have to be really nimble. And so as Eric shared, we sat down with each of our board members in 2022 and really fleshed out what could be some core goals to our program to help us be both proactive as well as reactive to opportunities at the state and federal level. And so that's where these 7 goals came from. But on the left, you see we have the overarching principles, which really align these goals with our mission at every step of the way. And then each of these 7 goals is specifically designed to help us tailor our work to the needs of the Park District, supporting climate-friendly transportation, community health, ecosystem stewardship, green jobs, sea level rise preparedness, welcoming visitor use facilities, and wildfire resilience across our work that we move forward. And then in terms of bringing those 7 goals to life, Eric and I are going to share the next 4 slides. We have our local and regional priorities, and these priorities are really taking the goals, the vision. Our board members expressed interest in a study session in 2022, and then also what we know is happening at a local level, at a state level, at a federal level. And so you'll see a lot of programs and opportunities that you're probably familiar with already reflected here. And so at a local level and regional level, our priorities, we're really looking at continuing conversations as local tax measures and others come to the forefront around trail maintenance funding and sea level rise mitigation funding. We're consistently tracking BCDC's plans for some sea level rise mitigation opportunities. We know there's a bunch of different plans and goals around sea level rise, and we're optimistic that BCDC's current effort is going to bring all of those various ideas into one formal approach, but that could be overly optimistic. And then also we're going to continue to host some site visits with our city councils, supervisor offices, and others to explore different areas of our work and highlight the work of the East Bay Parks. On a state level, some specific areas we're going to be focusing are the implementation of the Pathways to 30 by 30 program. And so for those of you less familiar with the program, this is the goal to conserve 30% of our state's lands and waters by 2030. It's also reflected at the national level as well as internationally. And then the 3 sort of essence of that program, in addition to the quantified acreage of conservation, is the goal of improving biodiversity, improving conservation of lands, and improving access to open space with specific attention to California's most vulnerable communities. We're going to be continuing to explore some direct state funding requests. We understand that there is less of a surplus this year, if even a surplus at all, but we're going to be having the conversation either through understanding that the governor is interested in exploring a resources bond with the legislature or other vehicles as they arise. We're working, and Eric will speak to this more on an upcoming slide, but we are co-sponsoring some legislation with Mid-Peninsula Open Space Authority, seeking to raise the administrative limit of our Public Resource Code 5500 Independent Special Park District Agency to the same as a county park district. The idea is that had we been designed to be a dependent county park department, we would have this higher administrative limit, and we really need it for our day-to-day operations. We're continuing to support reintroductions of legislation that we had been tracking in prior years that did not come to fruition. An example being AB 2535 by Mr. Garcia, and this was to provide additional funding and resources for play structures to have features that support individuals with disabilities to enjoy those play structures by approaching the work differently, similar to the one that we have out at Roberts Regional Recreation Area. And then, of course, continuing our strategic engagements through site visits, walk and talks, and other events. I'm going to pass it back to Eric for federal.
And at the federal level, we're actually hoping to have an opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. to meet with our delegation and advocate for some of these priorities. The first item that you see there is what we call the RAISE grant. That's a federal transportation grant program, very competitive. And we applied for it for our paved trail network 2 years ago. We were not successful in receiving funds in that round, but we did receive feedback from the Department of Transportation about ways to improve the application or just feedback in general. And we believe that we have an improved application to submit this year. And so we'll be advocating with our entire delegation to support that, and something that we will be reaching out to PAC members as well for letters of support, both from as individuals and also from your community. That's a big part of that grant program, is to demonstrate community support. And then we'll continue to be working on federal funding for our entire suite of issues we do with wildfire to mitigate. As Director Waspy said in the beginning, President Waspy said in the beginning, we also practice revegetation with ecologically sensitive vegetation, meaning it'll be less fire prone and more drought tolerant and more native plant species in order to keep that canopy that doesn't allow underbrush to grow and keeps the fuel load down for the event of a catastrophic fire or a fire, and that we can get in quickly and put it out and prevent it from growing to the catastrophic level. And then also, just in terms of kind of a new thing that we were excited to see this last year, there's some legislation discussing the importance of grasslands for both climate resiliency and wildfire mitigation, and some of the best practices for taking care of that land. First time that I personally believe that I've seen federal legislation that's that comprehensive, that addresses grasslands. So we were very excited to see that, and we'll continue to focus on working on ensuring that legislation passes, and then importantly, if it does, that special park districts like ours qualify for some of the funding. We have about 80,000 acres of grassland that we manage, and this could be an important next step for us. Next slide, please. And then this was kind of an exciting idea that we're thinking about already, what we might look at working on in 2024. And some of those items are ones that we've kind of had on our plate, but doing a little more internal analysis as well as external analysis prior to moving forward. As usual, we will be doing district-wide surveys on a potential ballot measure for funding, particularly for operations. Opening new parks and maintaining the parks that we have requires staff. And as you see here, fire operations and stewardship all play a great part of that. Then we're going to continue to work on some of the issues surrounding 30 by 30, which is a way of saying continuing to do the work that we're already doing, but also see if there's a way to get at some of the environmental regulations that we have to comply with, even though we're doing projects that are beneficial to the climate and to the environment and to restoration. We are basically have to meet the same limits that someone who's going to build a shopping mall would have to in terms of our CEQA authorization. And that's something that we should not necessarily always have to do. That's a good law, but it's one that in terms of doing some of the work in terms of land management that might need to have a little bit of a look at. And then, of course, as I think Lisa indicated earlier, we'll continue to do our external engagement But one thing that we would like to eventually expand capacity to do, which might require actually expanding capacity, would be to work on with parks commissions. And I think probably a number of you on the PAC may have served on parks commissions, and that is an area where we feel like advocacy really can happen because those individuals are not part of a city staff. They're individuals and can express more advocacy than perhaps a city staff person could. So that's our future. And I believe the next slide is just to talk a little bit in depth about our two main state priorities that we'll be talking to every one of our elected offices about. Planning a Sacramento site visit for advocacy at the end of the month. And the two requests are a budget request that the California Conservation Corps has made of the Department of Finance and the governor. And that budget request would go toward funding the planning of a facility that could house two wildfire crews and trails management crews in Las Trampas Regional Wilderness. And we have a site there that historically was a CAL FIRE site for a camp, and then I believe was also used by the Conservation Corps in the past as well. But it is in sorely need of an upgrade. It's not really functional for current operations of a camp. So they're putting in some funding requests to upgrade that area, and we're going to be supporting that effort. And hopefully, should they be successful, the study would lead to the potential of constructing a facility in the East Bay to house two California Conservation Corps crews. And that's important not just for the work that they can do, but for the pipeline that they create for future park employees, future land management employees, which is something that is definitely we support in the East Bay and actually throughout the industry. So that's an exciting opportunity. And then the other, Lisa mentioned earlier, raising the limit for what our general manager can approve in terms of a contract. Currently, the limit is $50,000. Lisa did some excellent research to go back 5 years, and we learned that 24% of our contracts that we have approved are between 50 and 200,000. And why is 200,000 significant? That is the administrative limit that counties of population of 200,000 people have for their county administrators. And so we're tying our effort to, especially serving almost 3 million people, to the size of an administrative limit for a county. And if we were able to do that, that's, as I mentioned, 24% of the contracts, and those are contracts like purchasing equipment, purchasing software, reoccurring monitoring fees, things that are very routine and necessary for our work, but also not necessarily needing to go on our board agenda items. And if we were, when we looked back at those five years, we estimate that it cost $23 million in staff time to prepare those staff reports and put the materials onto the board packet and seek board approval. So really looking for this tool to kind of increase efficiency and also help our staff do other work and move all of our projects forward more quickly. Next slide. I think it's back to you, Lisa.
All right, and apologize for the tiny type on this slide. These are our state member priorities, and so we shared previously the sort of overarching goals at the state level. What these represent is a specific priority that we've paired with an elected official as a focus topic for our meetings with them, our meetings with their staff, and site visits with them, et cetera, this year, in the hopes of some sort of outcome, whether that be introduced legislation, a direct funding allocation, funding through a bond measure. And I'm just going to lightly touch on each of these projects, but my hope is that all of you are already familiar with these projects. These didn't come out of our imagination. These projects are ones that have been developed by the Park District over the years. They were identified through our budget book that our board guides and moves forward. These are priority projects because at the end of the day, our grants team likes to say that the grants we get are the grants that we're able to close out and complete. And so we wanted to really ensure that the projects that we're asking for funding for are doable and can be advanced. And so for that reason, we referred to our capital project prioritization matrix and our budget book to identify these. And so just real quick, for Assemblymember Buffy Wicks, we're hoping to bring forward a request for capital funding for the Restore Wildcat Creek project at Brooks Road. For those of you who have gone hiking in Tilden recently, you might have come across this. It's a concrete trail that crosses a creek bed, and our goal is to remove that impact on the creek flow to create ADA accessible bridge pathways over the creek, and then to restore the creek to a natural flow akin to sort of a much smaller McCosker project. And so it's a really exciting one for fish health, for ecosystem health, as well as for park access. So really aligning with those 30 by 30 goals. Assemblymember Tim Grayson, he specifically expressed interest in partnering with the Park District on advancing the Marsh Creek Trail. And so we're currently at the planning and design stage for the Marsh Creek Trail, which would be a 3-mile extension near Round Valley. And this would be a trail that we would be developing and working on with Indigenous partners. And so part of this funding would go towards Indigenous consultation to really, truly be thoughtful and approach this project well. For Assemblymember Lori Wilson, she has shared with us her strong commitment to getting youth outdoors, the benefits of being outdoors for mental health. And so for that reason, we're bringing forward a request for funding to support outdoor programming. Outdoor programming is not as big of a lift in a 1-year funding timeline as a capital project. Capital projects are in the millions, programming is in the 100,000. And so for that reason, we've paired together all of our programs in East Contra Costa County and requested funding to support the purchasing of resources, the supplementing of the time of community groups and nonprofits who contribute to these programs. And we're really excited about what this could look like if it were successful. For Assemblymember Bauer Cahan, this is not a funding ask this year. We do want to thank Assemblymember Bauer Cahan for her partnership on advancing funding for the McCosker Creek restoration, as well as for upgrading our our helicopter in response to wildfire. And this year, we're really wanting to tap into her staff's time and thoughtfulness and work with them on some cutting the green tape legislation for possibly the 2024 legislative session. So taking this year to explore how could we better improve CEQA. There's some current CEQA streamlining legislation that expires in 2025. Do we want to extend that? Do we want to make changes? And really just sitting down with her staff on a regular basis to talk through legislation. So that way, when the window for introducing legislation comes next year, we'll be ready and have a really nice partnership product. With this Assemblymember Mia Bonta, a project that we're all pretty familiar with is the Tidewater Public Access Improvement Project by the boating center at Martin Luther King Jr. Regional Shoreline. As for Assemblymember Liz Ortega, we're hoping to advance the Oyster Bay Public Access Project. This is essentially a staging area with ADA, gender-inclusive restrooms, bike parking, a water bottle filling station, and other amenities to really make a welcoming first site when coming to this park to enjoy Frisbee golf or whatever it is that you came there for that day. Assemblymember Alex Lee, Eric highlighted on the map. In previous years, his district covered Mission Peak in terms of parks in our district. He's since redistricting expanded. He now includes Coyote Hills and a few other parks. And so the Coyote Hills Public Access and Restoration Project is moving forward. However, there was an element of the project that didn't receive the funding in time. And this is something that our team's really excited about, because should we be able to succeed with this request for funding, the project team has assured us that this bridge over the Crandall Creek could still be installed as part of this project, and it would create a nice protection for the restored natural area. Without the bridge, it is likely that bootleg trails might go through this creek. And so we see this as a great measure to maintain access while still protecting the natural area. And then this is where we'll get real speedy, is because a lot of our senators are receiving complimentary asks to their assembly member counterparts. So Senator Nancy Skinner will be discussing Tidewater, just like we will with Assemblymember Bonta. For Senator Steve Glazier, we'll be discussing the Martinez-San Francisco Bay Trail project. This is a half-mile Bay Trail connection project that connects the Bay Trail to an intermodal transit station and really creates a nice fluid thoroughfare in support of commuting and recreation alike. Senator Dodd will receive a complimentary ask to Assemblymember Wilson's on East Contra Costa County outdoor education. Senator Wahab will receive a complimentary Coyote Hills Crandall Creek Bridge ask. And then we are still, we have a meeting to discuss with Senator Tentamales Eggman, her office. We had begun the process of developing an ask and shared a letter, and they're more than happy to have a conversation with us around creating a statewide program for access enhancements to parks and open space. And this is really thinking about parks and open space infrastructure that existed before the 1990s ADA Act that needs maintenance funding, that doesn't necessarily need to be fully replaced, and really supporting the work that needs to be done to expand access and make inclusive park spaces, with an eye towards including such a grant program in a developing bond measure. And so in addition to our focus on state, we also will be hosting a Federal Advocacy Day, or excuse me, Federal Advocacy Week in the coming months. And for this, we also develop priorities for each member. So across the board, our request will be support on our RAISE grant application. Our members are familiar with this. We moved forward a similar application in 2021, and so we're optimistic that we will receive their support again. And then just independently, Senator Feinstein, we're looking forward to continuing our discussion with her office on wildfire mitigation and our funding needs there. For Senator Alex Padilla, as well as Congresswoman Barbara Lee, we're hoping to discuss efforts that can help advance the land transfer from the Army at Judge John Center Regional Shoreline to move forward, creating space for the public at their shoreline. With Representative John Garamendi, we're hoping to really focus in on the need for support on RAISE. For Representative Mark DeSaulnier, and I actually believe with Garamendi, we are also planning to bring forward the Martinez Bay Trail connection that I noted on Senator Glazier. For Representative Mark DeSaulnier, we're hoping to discuss the Marsh Creek Trail. And then for Congressmember Harder, as well as Congressmember Ro Khanna, that bill Eric had referenced earlier about grassland wildfire mitigation funding at the federal level. We're hoping to have discussions with both of these members on why such a bill is important. And the hope is to reintroduce that program and really help support to bring it to fruition. And then with last but not least, Representative Eric Swalwell will also be chatting with him about that ongoing need for wildfire mitigation. And then, of course, in reflection of the recent storms with all of our federal members, we will really be focusing on the FEMA funding that's needed for storm recovery and health of our infrastructure. We'll also be doing so with our state members, but it will be really our federal delegation support that can help move our FEMA grants forward. And so with that, I want to thank you all for your time, see if Eric has any final notes, and then just looking forward to any questions you may have.
No, just would be happy to answer any questions that the group might have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I want to see, does anybody have any questions? And that was very thorough, because I think all of us could see, okay, what are our elected officials, what are their priorities, and what are we, what is the Park District going to be asking of them? Roland.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation, guys. That was really impressive. So we all interact with a lot of the lawmakers that you had mentioned there. Can we get a copy of that information, and is it okay to have some conversations with them about some of the projects as well as
as fitly as we could probably describe them. I think you guys can do a much better job, but it would be to have some reference, I think would be awesome.
Absolutely. We'd be very happy to share with the Park Advisory Committee. Firstly, just our legislative program document. We'll make sure to get that out to you all. We'd also be happy to share the letters that we distributed to our members on each specific project and member ask. And we appreciate your support. This is the first year that we've turned to the Park Advisory Committee for letters of support for projects within your geographic region that you're here representing, and really want to thank everyone who provided a letter. And then all of you would have received a request for a letter of support. And for those of you who have the time, the capacity, and the resources to provide a letter, we really appreciate it. It makes a big difference. So thank you.
And when is that letter due, Lisa? Because I know I did see the ask, but I'm not sure that I know by when you would like those to be submitted.
I believe our hope was to receive the letters by either February 3rd or February 10th. Why don't we go ahead and say February 10th? Because I know that's well within the time frame for packaging the application. The application's due, I believe, February 29th, but we want to have the letters in hand to put all the PDFs together and submit to Department of Transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Thank you very much for that. Looks like there's a lot of exciting projects in the pipeline. So very, very excited to see that. All right, next, so we have another presentation that you'll be presenting, Eric. So this is the Park Advisory Committee Strategic Engagement Draft Proposal.
Yeah, thank you. I will be handing this presentation over to Lisa to do, but I just wanted to introduce it by saying, our continued conversations about the role of the PAC, and just to that point, we are planning to bring the definition that you all approved before the full board on February 7th. But that's just the beginning, the first step, continuing conversations with how to expand. And Lisa mentioned letters of support, and we've got some other ideas that we wanted to begin sharing with you all and getting feedback on. But I know from all the conversations that we've been having, the idea of this body being a community feedback loop has been very prominent. And so we want to try to harness that into effective work for the Park District and for meeting the goals of our mission and vision, but also truly engaging with the community. So we've asked Lisa to lead that effort for the PAC and manage it. And we'd like to have her begin the conversation with you all tonight. She has an excellent presentation to share, but really would like feedback and continued feedback. So if you think of something after tonight, please continue to reach out to us, and we'll continue to modify some of these goals and roles and mission for the PAC. So with that, Lisa, if you would like to go ahead and share your presentation with the group.
Absolutely. And as Eric noted, we have lots of time. We do have a timeline in the slide deck to talk through, and you'll see that not only can you share ideas tomorrow, but next month and the month after that. We really want to develop a strategic engagement plan that's representative of the PAC, that's in service to the Park District, that's supportive and inclusive of all of our communities. And so that's the goal today, is to start the conversation. And the goal subsequently will be to receive input from you all, receive input from others, and you'll see that in this slide deck. So we'll go ahead and get started. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the purpose. Why are we here today having this discussion? Some suggested forms of engagement, just to plant seeds of thought, a draft process for developing a strategic engagement plan, and then an implementation timeline. How long do we think it's going to take to develop this plan before we're able to hit the ground running and bring all these new voices we're excited to have at the table? So the purpose of a strategic engagement plan, and we can continue to flesh this out together, is to highlight the beneficial partnerships, share best practices, or provide insights from a subject matter expert in relation to the Park District activities, programs, and service delivery. And our hope is that these presentations and discussions will be linked to advancing board priorities and district staff work, and that the Park Advisory Committee discussions about these items can be structured in an alignment with the Park District's priorities, vision, and mission. And so as different topics come before the PAC, we can bring community groups, subject matter experts, and others into the conversation to elevate new voices. And so with that, some suggested forms of engagement that could fall into this proposal. We have 4 different forms to chat about today. The first one is a staff-sponsored community partner. And so what this means is that a Park District staff who engages with and partners regularly with a nonprofit and community organization can come and provide a presentation to the Park Advisory Committee on their work. It likely would be an informational discussion, but you never know. And the staff lead will co-present with this external partner to discuss the work, the goals of that work, and the desired outcome. So really providing those insights and education and spark ideas of how we might be able to expand this work, et cetera. And so examples might include Urban Tilth, Brentwood Beauties, East Oakland Collective, and others across the region where the Park District holds a relationship currently and wants to continue to support that relationship, celebrate that relationship. A second form could be a partner agency or organization. And this would be as part of the PAC's identified work plan, bringing forward a partner agency or organization who might have similar experience on a plan or a policy development that's under discussion at the PAC. An example that you all have already experienced is when Mid-Peninsula Open Space Authority and Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District and Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority came forward to discuss their community commissions, their guidance groups. We could have Los Angeles County Parks, who's a similar size to us, San Diego and others, and really having that sort of cross-policy knowledge and conversation. A third form could potentially be a subject matter expert. Again, really a nexus to something that the PAC is working on, guiding forward. This subject matter expert could provide insights or suggestions on a plan or policy that's before the PAC. And this could be an academic professional, a community leader who has specific information or perspective on that subject. And so some examples could be a guest from California University of California at Berkeley, California Natural Resources Agency, a media outlet, or others, a church, a community leader, etc. And then the fourth one is really intended to embed in the strategic engagement plan that we're going to be learning as we're implementing it. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to find holes in it. We're going to want to have a little bit of flexibility. And so the fourth form we're suggesting is room for growth. And so if a presentation is proposed, which does not fall into one of the identified categories, the PAC Executive Committee and staff can discuss the merits of such a presentation presented to the Board of Directors in alignment with current PAC policy to determine if space on the agenda should be provided and perhaps an update to the strategic plan. And so those are the 4 forms that have come to mind for us that we want to just plant as seeds today. We're looking forward to reviewing, evaluating, fleshing out, expanding, editing these forms over the coming months. In terms of a process for the strategic engagement and how this would fit into the logistics of the Park Advisory Committee, our hope is that these presentations would occur on an as-needed basis. They're intended to enhance the conversation, to support the discussion, and not necessarily be a burden on the PAC that we have to meet because we committed to X, Y, and Z. And so on an as-needed basis, and that they would be in relation to a priority topic or a discussion that the PAC is advancing as part of its work plan. So maybe that's in nexus to a naming policy discussion or a review of a certain plan. These presentations would be organized by the staff liaison. So at this point, that's me, and have an identified goal outcome from the presentation. And so within the staff report, we would identify that this presentation is in alignment with this form of engagement. It's a subject matter expert, and our goal is to have learned information. So really being constructive and also helping to set the expectations for the guests that we're inviting to our meeting. We want them to know what our goals are, so that way they can cater their presentation and we can have a mutually positive exchange, learned information, shared best practices, etc. And again, all of this will be within the PAC's formal staff report. And then just in terms of timeline, we want to do this thoughtfully, inclusively, and we know the PAC is a pretty big group, and so we want to give time for all of you to have input, for our general manager to provide some guidance, and of course our board of directors to review, consider, and have their input as well. And so today, as Eric noted, we're considering this the start of the presentation. It's an introductory on a potential strategic plan. Our hope in February is to sit down with the Park District's general manager, leadership team, as well as the PAC executive committee to review a proposed plan on a Word document and really sort of taking a lot of what came from this presentation, editing it, molding it, and a lot of whatever feedback we received today or subsequently via email. In March, the hope would be to come back to you all with a draft strategic plan for review, and if the timing works out and if everyone feels comfortable, approval of that plan. If we need to bring it back again in April, we can also do that. So really not trying to rush everything. We really want to do this thoughtfully and in a nice timeline. Should we have approval in March, the next step, or whenever we have approval, the next step will be bringing it before our board executive committee, and then ultimately our formal full board of directors for implementation of the PAC strategic engagement plan. And so with that, that's sort of just a drop of our initial thoughts. And I'm going to go ahead and pull down my screen in hopes that we can have a little bit of a discussion. So thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. And I will say, you know, I don't know if everybody had a chance to review in advance, because I think we might have gotten our packet on Saturday. So I understand if people haven't had a chance to, you know, really digest this. But do you have any particular like specific questions that you would like feedback on, or are you looking for, you know, the whole process? What do you think? I mean, are there some questions that can maybe help guide this discussion?
Yeah, I guess I would be curious to hear from PAC members if there was a form of engagement that you didn't feel was addressed in the current proposal, because that's what we'll be pulling from to do our first draft. Or if there's sort of a case study example that maybe you can't name, but you don't think it would fit in. I'd be curious if the timeline sounds good for developing a plan, if we want to move faster, slower. And also, is this meeting your goals? Is this still of interest to the PAC? Are we going down the right direction, or are we completely off the map and you all had something else in mind in terms of community engagement? So we're really trying to build off of your input and your thoughts. And so I guess those are all pretty broad, but hopefully that can help guide our conversation a little.
Thank you. And I just want to take a step back and just see, could I see like a show of hands? How many people had a chance to review this and give this some thought? Because I have to be honest that I wasn't able to give this the deep level of thinking that I usually do, because variety of reasons. But a thought that I have is, we just received the presentation. Thank you. And I'm just wondering if it makes sense to postpone this actual feedback conversation to our next meeting and have, you know, the guiding questions that you're looking for feedback sent out, just because like I'm used to with city council, you know, there's a staff report and then it's like, hey, what are the areas to help focus the conversation? And I think that could help the group, because this is really exciting. Where there's been a lot of work on your part, Lisa, Eric, a variety of other folks to get to this point. And so what I wouldn't want to shortchange the conversation for lack of, I guess, you know, on my part, I will just say preparation. And so I would like to open it up just to see how other members of the PAC feel about that proposal. Okay, Linda.
Well, I think in general, you know, it's really difficult to engage without seeing the PowerPoint, unless I missed it. I don't think any of us got the PowerPoint, right? In our packet, when you asked if we had a chance to dive into it. Am I missing it, or I don't think we got the PowerPoint? Same thing for the the legislative one. So I would agree with you that the opportunity to see the presentations, both of them, would be helpful to dig into a little bit more. It's hard to have any opinion on the fly like this.
How about you, Vice Chair Tsutsui?
Yeah, thanks for that presentation, Lisa. I mean, I do think that it sounds like that it would be useful to come back and have more feedback on the specifics at our next meeting. But this topic has been brought up, and we've talked about the general topic a few times, and I think there is a lot of enthusiasm. I certainly have a lot of enthusiasm for seeing this go forward and flesh out the specifics a little bit more. And I also wonder if we could incorporate into the timeline, not in the near term, but once we go through our process and sort of set out the parameters for it, if we could have, a couple example presentations that might sort of model what this could be for us. So like Urban Tills could be one. I know there's the Institute for People, Parks, and Biodiversity at UC Berkeley. We could probably get the new executive director to come and, think of a couple examples that, could sort of model the opportunities for conversation or give examples of some of the topics that this could really serve as a useful sort of process for. But like I said, I think that there's, I certainly have a lot of enthusiasm for it. I think it would be, great to sort of hear some of the voices of our partners a little bit more in depth, and also, to sort of reinforce those lines of communication between us and the groups that we work with out there.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Rochelle?
Yeah, well, Neil pretty much said what I wanted to say, I guess. I agree with those who say, we should get more time to look at things, but I also want to very strongly express support for the overall approach. I think there are a lot of really good ideas in here, and it would be really exciting if the PAC could become, really engaged in supporting the district. Government agencies attract a lot of attention when they don't do well. When an agency is really well run, which this one is, people don't necessarily pay that much attention. And it seems to me that the PAC is a great resource for getting more attention and resources focused on the district. And so I really like it, very enthusiastic, but I agree with the other folks that, another look at it is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I think I've had a closer look and more involvement with this process, serving as chair of this body. But I want to express my support and gratitude to staff for all of the hard work. It sounds though like there's consensus to send out the PowerPoint to the PAC. And then if you could just have a few questions included to prompt thought. And then, I just would like to see us, we could add this to the February agenda. I don't think we're going to delay progress on this too much by just, adding it to the February agenda and having the time and space to have an in-depth conversation and then going from there. So I don't know, do we need a motion or anything to do that? Probably. I don't want to be a dictator here at the PAC. So is there a motion to move, to continue this item, I guess is what I would say, to the February meeting?
Carlin,
Yes, Igor.
I think somebody was Eric, were you trying to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's a great idea to have a vote, and thank you for doing that. I don't think it's probably necessary, just because this is intended to be an item that continues to get revisited by the body. So happy to entertain a motion, but I'm not sure that it's really necessary, because the intent all along has been to have a series of conversations.
Thank you for that.
I would like
Do you have
to
something to add, Igor?
like to also add my vote of enthusiasm for this process. I think this is kind of what we do in a way, but having it sort of laid out and actually intentional with some like guideposts along the way on how to do it. I think it's very helpful. I like the whole concept of, okay, here's how we work. Let's see if we can write that down and sort of provide that roadmap. That way, I think it's a great idea, and it's a way of capturing a fairly successful process and probably making it more efficient and more effective. I'm very much in favor of that. And if it doesn't put us behind the 8-ball to where we have to hurry to catch up, I too would like to suggest that maybe we take another period to internalize and think about these ideas and the structure, and then come back and really have at it. For me, after all the great presentations that we've had today, I'm starting to run out of gas a little bit. And having this at the end of the whole process, you have to sort of reach down deep for the enthusiasm, like when a marathoner hits the wall, So if we could maybe do this in the future, earlier in the program, to where we're still kind of have a lot more energy, I think probably should be good.
Thank you, Igor. And Roland, it looks like you're coming off mute. Did you have something you wanted to say?
It's all already been said. So I don't have anything to add. The only thing I did want to say was, I like the idea of what's being described. And if it's just going to add a month to that timeline, I'm in favor. It seems like there's some momentum here, so I definitely want us to. This is something we've been talking about for a while, so I don't want us to put the brakes on too hard.
I completely agree. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so it sounds like this was a great start to the conversation, and we all know what our homework is before our February meeting. Come with ideas, and we can have a robust discussion, and maybe we could even do something like we've done in the past with the breakout rooms to I'll talk with Eric more about this, but I liked how we had looked at a previous topic, and we had different questions, and we had the breakout room. So we'll see what logistically is possible. Okay, thank you, everybody. So we're going to move off of that item, and then we have our third presentation item tonight, which is 2023 PAC elections. And once again, we have some information. I think, Eric, I will let you kick off this item, if that's okay with you.
Sure. We do an annual appointment or reappointment of the chair and vice chair at the January meeting, and so wanted to entertain motions for the chair for this year. And for those who may or may not remember, we changed the, for lack of a better word, bylaws for the chair to serve 1-year terms as opposed to in the past it was 2-year terms, just to provide more flexibility for members who may be terming out sooner rather than later. So I think with that, we probably can go ahead and take nominations for chair.
Eric, say that again. You said that we went from, because I always remember being 2 years. So we went to 1 year because of perhaps folks terming out. What was that?
Yeah, was it last year or year before? But we did change the length of the term to just the 1 year.
But with the option of a second year. So it wasn't just, so you could have up to 2 years, but if someone wanted to step down after 1 year, they could do that.
Okay.
So I see Neil and then Rochelle.
I was just going to say, I think Chair Obringer's been doing an excellent job, and I would love to nominate her for another term as chair.
Thank you. I'll accept that nomination. I'm sorry, who was that? Was that Rochelle?
This is Sharon. I just
second Sharon.
That nomination.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And then Rochelle had her hand up. Everybody's moving around on the Brady Bunch board here. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anyone else who would like to weigh in on that? So was that a motion, Neil? I guess we need a
Yes, it was.
motion.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Susie. I did not see your virtual hand.
That's okay. I had it up and then I took it down. I was going to nominate Neil, given that Chair Obringer has done an excellent job, but if 1 year is what she agreed to, which I guess it was, then maybe she'd be happy to hand the baton over and maybe Neil would take it.
Yeah, I think the change to the procedure was that people could still serve for 2 years, but it would be broken up into 1 year increments. So instead of 2 years all in one go, then a chair could still serve for 2 years, but have a renewal after the first year. And so I'd be happy to see Chair Obringer, serve out the next year.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion from anyone? Okay, so I think we have a motion and a second. And so if Madam Secretary would please take the vote, call the vote, excuse me.
Absolutely. So we have Andrew Carey,
Aye.
James Chang, moving on to Susie Claxton,
Aye.
Sharon Corkin,
Aye.
Linda Deschambeau,
Aye.
Irene Dieter,
Wholeheartedly, yes, yes, yes.
Luana Espana,
Aye.
Michelle Lace, my apologies, Rochelle Nason.
Aye.
Carlin, I would say your name, Chair Obringer, I would say your name, but since this is about you, I will not, right? I don't know.
Sure, but I get to vote, right? So I will vote yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Igor Skerdoff
Aye.
and Neil Titsui,
Aye.
closing with Roland Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. I look forward to continuing to serve in this role. And I really appreciate the confidence placed in me in this role. And I believe the next item that we have, Eric, is the selection of the vice chair for the PAC. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And so I would like to nominate Neil Tsutsui to continue as vice chair of the PAC. Is there a second to that?
I will second.
Okay. Got Andrew. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, so Madam Secretary, if you could please take the roll. Or the vote, thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. So we will start again with Andrew Carey.
Aye.
And James Chang. Susie Claxton,
Aye.
Sharon Corkin,
Aye.
Linda Deschambeau,
Aye.
Irene Dieter,
Aye.
Luana Espana,
Aye.
Rochelle Nason,
Aye.
Chair Obringer,
Absolutely, yes.
and Igor Skerdoff,
Aye.
Neil Titsui,
Aye.
and closing with Roland Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much. And Eric, is there anything else that we need to do in terms of this agenda item?
At this time, no.
I had one question, maybe a point of order. So so even we were talking about the engagement, and there was some talk about going back and forth between the PAC and the executive committee. is the executive committee only the chair and vice chair, or is there more, is that a bigger body? Is there 3 or 4 people or?
So what we have been doing is we've had the chair, the vice chair, the immediate past chair, and the treasurer have been serving. However, we know that Rick is no longer on the body on the PAC, so I think we do need to form a new executive committee. Is that correct, Eric?
Yes, that's correct.
And do we still have a treasurer then?
To my knowledge, Marie Arce is. I don't believe that we changed the term of the treasurer, or the finance committee chair, I think is what her official title is. So Marie is not here today. To my knowledge, she would like to continue, but I should not assume anything. So I will reach out to her to ensure that she wants to continue in that role. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I know we're going to lose Susie in a minute to get to her health class. We are winding down this meeting. So I want to, again, we've heard a lot from Eric tonight, but there might be some additional staff comments. Do you have anything additional to share, Eric?
No, I think I've talked enough. Thank you.
Okay, great. PAC member comments. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment this evening? And I don't see any hands, virtual or otherwise, raised. Okay, so moving on to report from chair. Since we last met, there had been a few meetings or participation. I will say both myself and Vice Chair Tsutsui speaking to the executive committee of the park board, the Park District Board. So again, reiterating and making public comment on the agenda items related to the role of the PAC, the importance of that role. So we have participated in 2 meetings. I believe both of them are, well, one was definitely in December. And then we did participate in a meeting that included, it was basically an annual check-in meeting that included the chair of the Park District Board. So past chair Colin Coffey, as well as the general manager of the Park District and Eric as well. So we just did a check-in meeting to see how things were going from a PAC perspective and from the board perspective. So the conversations were cordial, and we look forward to continuing to moving forward in a positive manner. And that's my report. We don't have any board committee reports at this time. Do we have any old business, Eric?
No, I don't believe so. Just want to thank everybody for participating in the recognition event out here at the Parklet, and apologize that I was not able to attend, but I understand it went well and people had a nice time. So appreciate everybody's attendance.
Yes, that seems like so long ago, but I'm sorry, I would be remiss if I did not thank staff for organizing a very nice event where we were able to see each other in person. That was really quite a privilege to see so many people in person. And that also happened, I think it was back on like December 13th or something. So it was a while ago, but that was a very nice event. We got to say goodbye to some longtime board members and say congratulations to John Mercurio and Olivia as they were moving into their roles. So it was a very nice event. So thank you to Flora, Yoli, and other staff members who organized that. It was very nice. Okay. Any new business? Oh, Roland, looks like you have something to say.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. I agree with everything you said, Carly. I thought it was a really nice event, particularly given that we were still kind of in the throes of COVID. But I know that, particularly the executive committee and all of us, we kind of give a fair amount of our time to the park and to be on this committee. I certainly would like to see us go back to some of our old ways where it was a nice dinner. We got to get together. really got to share and enjoy one another in a more, maybe a little bit more comfortable setting. It got pretty cold there towards the end. So at any rate, I just want to, that's more for staff and maybe Dennis who's on the call. Just, you know, I'd like a steak maybe or something.
Thank you. Okay, other than that, do we have any new business? I don't even know what qualifies as new business exactly. Okay, I don't think we have any. So I want to thank everybody again for your time. This was a great meeting, and I'm going to call for adjournment and look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you again.
Nice to see you all.
Good night.